And we have, after plotting, we have a curve like this. Let's see, the points that give us the curve is 1 minus 4. Now, anytime you get something like this, note that where the turning occurs, let me draw it better so that you get it. Where the turning occurs, the points constitute what we call a turning point. That is it. This that is where the turning was done. So we can see something like this. This is where the turning was done. So in that case, we call that the turning points. And so the turning points of the curve will be 1 and -4. Have I made myself clear? Now we are also going to talk about the minimum and the maximum value. And so this is the minimum value. That is, it will be on the y. So in this case, the minimum value here will be -1. At the point of x, when x is 1, the minimum value will be -4. And so that is where there's the minimum value here, the minimum value or the least value here. Now, on the other hand, if you have something like this, we have something like this. It will like it rain. Oh. If you have something like this, it definitely here will be the maximum value. So let's say here 2 is 1 and 4. Yeah. It rain. We have 1 and 4. The y value will become your maximum value. Now, the 2 points will become your turning point. That is where the turning is done. The point, don't forget that you'll be having point here, and so on. But we are talking about the turning point where the turning is done, or where we have the curve itself. That point, the point that constitutes or that makes the turn a possibility or possible is what we call the turning points in quadratic equation. So we are going to learn how to find for the minimum value, the maximum value, the turning points, and so on and so forth. If it was to be in calculus, that would be very simple. You just differentiate, equate it to 0, and you are good to go. You can just use your calculator, but this one uses a different what do you call it, a different approach. So I'm going to take you through, and it follows 1 or 2 principles. So once you're able to get a principle, you should be able to tell that this is your minimum value, this will be your maximum value, this will be negative, this will be positive, and so on and so forth, which is very, very simple. It's been ages since I did quadratic equation. That is SHS time. So we are all revising. That is it. Now, so we have this. We are saying the quadratic equation is of the form. You write this in your book. It's of the form ax squared plus b plus c, where a, b, c are constants. Now they are constants, but they are also coefficients. So we have that is it. So the function gives a minimum point when the coefficient a of the x squared is positive, and so this function will give a minimum point when the coefficient of a, when the coefficient of this a, when the coefficient a of this x squared, you know, this is the coefficient of this x. This is also this bx, sorry. So b is also a coefficient of this, and definitely you get a coefficient of this. There's a constant. And so when this coefficient of this x squared is positive, then that means the function is what do you call it, or is greater than 0. Then that means the function will be minimum, or will give a minimum point. However, when the coefficient of this x, which is a, is less than 0, then that means the function will give us a maximum point, or will give us a maximum point. That is it. So let me just reiterate what I said. The function gives a minimum point when the coefficient a of the x squared is positive. Now, when you say it's positive, that means that it's greater than 0. So immediately when we are giving you, try example so you get it better. When immediately this a is greater than 0 or is positive, then that means at the back of our mind, you should know that we will be getting, the function will definitely give us a minimum point. However, when it is less than a, which is when it is in the negatives, because only negative can be less than 0. If it is a is less than 0, then that means the equation will give us a positive or a maximum value. So the minimum value of y, so in this case, the minimum value for y gives s is equal to 1. So you realize that here s is equal to 1, and what they call it, a minimum point is -4. So that is what we are going to get. Then we are going to look at that of the maximum. Here we are talking about the maximum here. And so we are going to solve 1 or 2 questions that will help us understand. So the minimum or the maximum points of the quadratic function is called the vectors or the turning points of the curve. So the minimum and the distance is called the turning point of the curve. And we are going to solve some questions, how we are going to solve them when we are given a work, and so when we are given work, sorry, how it's done, and so on and so forth. Then we are good to go. This is mathematics, so no child talks. Let's just solve 1 or 2 questions, and I use that to explain. I'll use that to explain. So if you are done, can I please erase it so that we do some 1 or 2 questions? Adam crash. Oh, I like to answer them. The machine and charging.
So I'm not done.
So finish, please, and let's do. No charge finish. Is it? I guess Zoom. Yeah. See, you can't close that. But is it lighter at your place too? Michelle and Ruben, is it lighter at your place too?
So no, it's raining here.
Because immediately our light just went off. So I'm just hoping the machine can take us through the studies. Are you done writing? I'm just waiting for you to tell me you're done. Michelle, are you done writing? Ruben, are you done writing? I'm waiting.
Yes, sir.
Ruben, are you done?
Yes, sir.
Good. Let's just see how best we can find a minimum and maximum value. In other words, the least and the highest value of a given function. I've already given you what do you call it, the theory about it. Now, the question reads: find the minimum value of f of x. Find the minimum value of f of x. F of x is equal to 3x squared, 3x squared minus x minus 6. So find the minimum value of f of x. I already told you find the minimum value. So you already know the minimum value you are going to get. And for what value of x does it occur? And for what value of x does it occur? So find the minimum value of f of x is equal to 3x squared minus x minus 6. And for what value of x does it occur? And for what value of x does it occur? So when you are given a question like this, the first thing you're going to do is basically, you are going to have your solution. Now, after getting this, then what you are going to do is you are going to factorize the coefficient of x. You want to make sure that the coefficient of x squared is always 1. So you are going to factor, because this is free, you are going to factorize the free out so that you can get the coefficient of x squared to be 1. So factorizing this out, now you are going to get, let me just use y so that will be very simple. So f of x, I'm factorizing free out. You are doing it in such a way that you are going to get the coefficient of x squared to be equal to 1. So this will be free into bracket x squared minus 1 all over 3 minus 1 all over 3 1 over 3x minus 2. You know, when factorize this out, it's the same as 1 all over 3. So if you multiply it, will cancel out. You are going to get x this back. And 3 will go into 6 twice. So you are going to get something like this. Are we there? So this is the first step you are going to do. So for instance, if it was just x squared minus x minus 6, then there wouldn't be any need of factorizing. But because it is like this, we are going to factorize. Now, after factorizing this out, the second thing you are going to do is you are going to divide the coefficient of x by 2. So I'm going to divide the coefficient of x, not x squared. And so in this case, the coefficient of x is this one, b. So here the coefficient of x is b, 1 over 3. And so comparing this equation to this equation or this equation, you realize that the coefficient of x here is 1 over 3. Are you getting it? So the next step is we are going to divide the coefficient of x by 2 and square the result. And so after after dividing by 2, we are going to square the result. And so the coefficient of this is minus minus 1 over 3. The coefficient of x is minus 1 over 3. So we are going to divide it by 2. When you divide it by 2, you are going to get minus 1 all over 6. And so we are going to get minus 1 all over 6. Then you square it. This is the next step. And square it. So the first step is that you are going to make sure that the coefficient of x squared is 1. So in that case, since this one is 3, you are going to divide through by 3, or you are going to factorize 3 out. So you are going to get the coefficient of x squared to be only 1. Now afterwards, you are going to divide the coefficient of x by 2 and you square it. So after division, we had negative 1 all over 6. Negative 1 all over 6. Negative 1 all over 6. We go to this place. Sorry, it was a network. So we go to 3 into brackets. The airline keeps freezing. Oh, sorry. Please, maybe the network. Sorry, please. So the first step, we are given 3x squared minus x minus 6. So I told the first thing, you are going to make sure that the coefficient of x squared is 1. That's 1. So we divided, or we factorized 3 out, and we have x squared minus 1 all over 3 x minus 2. And the next step we did was to divide the coefficient of x, not x squared, by 2, and you square it. So after dividing this, we had the coefficient of this is minus 1 all over 3. So after dividing by 2, we had minus 1 all over 6. Minus 1 all over 6. All squared. That's what we had. Now, after that, what you are going to add s.
Divided by 2. How come all squared?
I don't get your question. These are the steps you are going to follow to solve it. And so these are the steps you are going to follow. So you follow the steps, please. You said?
So you say you divide by 2. You didn't say you raise it after dividing by 2. You raise it to the power 2. You didn't say that.
Oh, okay. I don't get what you're trying to say, but That's what I mean. So after dividing the coefficients by 2, you are going to raise all to the power 2. I hope you get it. You want it that way. Or you are going to square the result. And so the result after dividing this by 2, you are going to get -6. That's the result. Then you square it by 2. Or you raise the power 2. That's what you want. You raise the power 2. Raising to the power 2 and squaring it is the same thing. I didn't say you square root. I said you square it. Good. So that is it. Now, the next step is we are going to add and subtract this expression. The one in the bracket. We are going to add and subtract it. We are going to add and subtract it. And so that means now we have f of x. So you follow the instruction. When you're given the work, this is exactly how you're going to go about it. Now, after when you're advancing the class, sorry, please, the network, I beg, not my fault. So we are going to add and subtract. So this is how it goes. So we are going to get f of x. Let's see, I can't tell me. I'm going to get f of x is equal to f of x will be equal to 3 into bracket x squared minus 1 all over 3x all over 3x plus what we squared and we subtracted. So plus into bracket minus, we are going to add and subtract, minus 1 all over 6 squared minus, so here we added it and here we are subtracting 1 all over 6 minus 2. So that will be the procedure. So the first thing we are going to do is we are going to make sure that the coefficient of x squared is 1. And by so doing, we are going to factorize the coefficient if it is not 1. So after factorization, what we did was that we are going to divide the coefficient of the x by, what do you call it, by 2. And after that, the result we get, we are going to square it, or we are going to up it by 2. Then the next step we are going to do is we are going to add and subtract. This we are going to add and subtract. And so after this, so we realize that we've added the result and we are subtracting 2. So in other words, it was to be at the university, I'll tell you, I just adding a 0 to the work you are doing. You're just adding a 0 to the work you are doing. You've not done anything to the work. You've just added a 0 for the purposes of what you are doing. When I say you just added a 0, you realize that this minus this will give you 0. This minus this will give you 0. When we expand it, that will be this plus minus will be plus. That will give you 0. And so basically what we are doing. So we've not added anything. We just added a 0. But for the purpose of the math we are doing, that's what we are going to do. So we are going to add and subtract. That is it. Now, from there, we are going to get 3 x squared. We can have x squared and this x squared minus this. I'm going to show you something. Minus 1 all over 6 squared all over 6 squared all over 6 squared minus, when we expand it, we are going to get 1 all over 36. 1 all over 36 minus 2. Now, the reason why we omitted this is that you realize that from here, the whole of this, from here to here, is the same as this. It's the same as this. When you expand this, you are going to get this, the whole of this back. You can give it a try. When you expand the whole of this, you are going to get the whole of x squared minus 1 all over 3x plus into brackets 1 all over 1 over 6 squared, which when you do, you are going to get 1 all over 36. So you can just give it a try. You are going to get, so the whole of this x squared minus 1 all over 6 all into bracket squared represents the whole of this. Represent the whole of this. This is x. Please, do you get it? Do you get it? You can decide to what do you call it? expand this. When you expand this, you are going to get the whole of this. The whole of this. So another way of writing the whole of this is x minus 1 all over 6 squared, all squared, and minus this we already know. So this one we expanded this, and we had 1 raised to the power 2 is 1. All over 6 raised to the power 2 is 36. Minus 2, this is already here. So that's what we are going to get. Now when we get here, 1 all over 36 minus 2 will give us minus 73. Minus 73 all over 36. All over 36. All over 36 minus, that is it. So I'm going to solve some series of questions. So when the class ends, you join again so that we finish. 3, I'm just opening our next class. The network won't be messing up. So I'm going to get x minus 1 all over 6 all squared. All squared. So this is what we are going to get. Now, after getting this, what we are going to do is we want to find for the least value. We are going to find for x. So when we are going to find for x, we are going to take the one in the bracket and equate it to 0. So I'm going to take x minus 1 all over 6 is equal to 0. So x will be equal to 1 all over 6. Now, when x is equal to 1 over 6, the minimum value of f of x will be this one. So always the minimum value of f of x or the maximum value of f of x will be this. The last value. When you equate it to the equation with it, that will be the c. You get it? So this value, that will be your y. It's the minimum value. So that is why you can see it is negative. The minimum value. But the value for which this one is the minimum value is the x. And the x here, when we equated it to 0, or when we equate it to 0, we are going to get a positive value. And so 1 all over 6 is greater than 0. And that's what when I was talking to you about the theory, I was telling you. Now when the coefficient is, when a is greater than, you realize that this is x squared. So here when a is equal to, when a is positive or greater than 0, then that means we are going to get a minimum value. And since this 1 over 6 is greater than 0, we are getting a minimum value which is in the negatives. Are you getting it? And so when you have to draw the curve, you are going to get it in the negatives. So when we are plotting the curve, it will be something like this, where x will be equal to 1 over 6. X will be 1 over 6. Then y will be negative 73 all over 36. And that is it. So when you are given something like, so there's two values. Your minimum value, so y here, you can write your minimum value here will be equal to negative 73. But the question is that you should find for the value for which the distance is the minimum value. The value for which it is the minimum value is the x, which is 1 over 6. And this is the minimum value. It occurs at the minimum value. So the minimum value is negative 3 all over 36. Am I correct? Or 12? Check for me. Check for me. So that is it. So I'm coming, please. Here will be 12. Don't forget that the 3 is multiplying all of them. The 3 is multiplying all of them. So immediately we take away this thing. So we are going to get something like this. 3 into bracket x minus 1 all over 6 minus the 3 will multiply this one, because don't forget that the 3 was multiplying the whole of this. Now when it multiplies this, it will cancel the 36. So we are going to get negative 73 all over 12. And so that is it. So we are going to get something like this. So now the 3 is no more affecting this. It is affecting only this one, because this has had its share. Are you getting it? So our minimum value here, y will be equal to negative 73 all over 12. And it occurred at, or it occurred when x is equal to, or it occurs at x is equal to 1 all over 6. So that is it. So now this two becomes your, this is your minimum value. the minimum value is negative 73 all over 12, and your x value is 1 all over 6. So the two of them constitute your turning points, and the rest you solve more questions, so you get it. Please write it. If you didn't get it, we are going to solve more questions so that you get it better. So please put it in your book.
I'm writing.
Okay, good. We have less than 1 minute, so when it ends, you join again, so that we solve some more questions, so that we get it well. Onye prama kakra. Bibi ne. Di don kakra na. O kakra bit na twetwe curtains na kakra na o. Onye prama kakra na. Ala na tere. Oh, naka 5 minutes now we are